Hello guys, welcome back, and today I'm going to talk about the most disappointing teams, in my opinion, that are playing below my expectations for the season, this NHL season. Now, I have 7 teams on this list. Of course, all of them are out of the playoffs, 5 of which I did peg to make the playoffs, which, of course, kind of hurts. But we'll be looking through all of them, 7 teams, and the first team I'm going to mention is probably the least disappointing to the end to the most disappointing. Now, we're going to start with the Buffalo Sabres, who are right now 23, 40, and 12. I don't know what rank they are in the NHL, but we all know the disappointing season that they've had. Now, they haven't made the playoffs in quite some time. I think it's been 8 years now, and that's been a long, long time for them. I pegged them to be a lot better than they were last season. I pegged them to be a not contender for the playoffs, but going to be competitive, to be kind of in that race a little bit for at least a bit of the season. I expect them to be a lot better than this, both in offense and defense. I expect their defense to be the best part of the game, and of course that hasn't happened at all. I expect them to be a bubble team, not quite towards the playoffs, but not quite in the dumpster. I expect them to be decent, but of course they did not do that. They're probably the worst team for a long, long time. They're now playing a lot better, but it was really bad for a long time, and I expect them to be a lot better. Unfortunately, they just couldn't be that. Then we got the Arizona Coyotes, who of course started the season on the 10-game losing streak. They've been a lot better lately in the second half. They've been actually a really good team in the second half, surprisingly. They dug themselves out of a hole. They still have 39 losses, but they're at 25, 39, and 11. But they have been playing a lot better lately. And if it wasn't for that, they'd be in the dumpster right now. They would have been around Colorado from last season in terms of points, and it's been a lot better for them recently. That's really good because the attendance has been up as well. Overall, the team is a lot better than it was in the first half, obviously, and they've actually been a pretty good team, pretty good spoiler throughout the second half. Now, I pegged them to be in the same boat as the Sabres. Basically, the Arizona Coyotes were going to be the Buffalo Sabres of the West. I thought that they were going to improve on the season that they had, be a lot better, not be in the playoffs, but be a competitive team, a lot like what I was pegging the Buffalo Sabres to be. Not going to be that playoff team, but going to be close to it. I like the moves that they made in the offseason, but unfortunately, that didn't work out early enough, but it did help out in the second half surge that they're on, and that's good enough. Then we go to the New York Rangers, who I didn't think were going to be as bad as they were after the trade deadline. Just tear down that they had. I thought they were going to be a lot worse after that, but they've kind of been good at times, but bad at others. Not as bad as I thought they were going to be, though, but coming into the season, I thought they were going to be a playoff team. I thought that they were going to be either second or third in the Metropolitan. I thought that Henrik was going to have a career year. I just felt like they were going to still be in the playoffs, but not be still a great team in the playoffs. I thought they were going to make it, but still not be a great team in it. But they're at 33, 34, and 8. And, it's been a rough season for them, especially to start. It wasn't what they were expecting. Not as a lot of Rangers fans were expecting. And overall, it's a pretty off year for the Rangers. And, of course, they're set to be on a rebuild right now, which might last the next couple of years. And really, I thought they were going to be a lot better. I thought that the core was still going to be good enough to handle just the aging. But, of course, it did not. And it really just imploded on itself in this season. And we really got to see how the New York Rangers had to just react to a rebuild. It's very interesting to see what they've done. And, of course, we can't tell if it's a good move or not at this point, but going into the future, we know that they're going to be on the rebuild, so at least we know that, or they could just go on, they can go in the playoffs next year and be unpredictable as well, but they've been pretty unpredictable this season as well. They can have a week where they're really good and really not be, but I pegged them to be in the playoffs, and of course, they're not so of course, they're going to be disappointing. Then we have the Chicago Blackhawks, who I made a video on a few days ago, so I won't go into too much detail about them, but they're at 31, 36, and 9. Now, I don't think I pegged them to win a division, but I expect them to be a playoff team. Pretty much just scraping by the barrel there, but I expect them to be a playoff team nonetheless. Of course, they haven't been that this season. They're pretty inconsistent and pretty much struggling throughout the whole season. Not going to get into their details since I already did that, but just overall, a lot of people pegged them in the playoffs, and of course they aren't, and they've been one of the more disappointing teams of the NHL season. Then we have the Montreal Canadiens, who I'm conflicted on because, on one hand, I probably should have expected this, but on the other hand, I did expect them to make the playoffs. They're at 27, 37, and 12 right now, and I don't gotta go into too much detail to tell you that they're pretty bad right now. And they're not one of the teams like the Arizona Coyotes who started off bad, but then started to play well. No, the Montreal Canadiens have just been bad throughout the whole season. It's never just been they've gotten better. They've never really gotten better. They just kind of just kept landsliding and kept falling down and kept falling down. They never really have gotten better. and they just keep going on a landslide. Things keep happening that keeps making them worse, and I expect them to make the playoffs. I didn't expect them to go far in the playoffs at all, though. I'm glad I didn't fall into that trap. But going into what the moves that they made in the offseason, it's clear to me how this has happened, and it's clear to a lot of people how this happened. And, you know, a lot of it is because of the general manager and the moves that they've made. But overall, it makes sense while they're in the bottom, and they probably deserve to be. Then we go to the Ottawa Senators, who are at 26, 37, and 11, and they've had a lot of problems this season. Now, again, I made a video on them. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think I pegged them to be third in the Atlantic. I expect them to make the playoffs, and of course, they were on track to make the playoffs early in the season. They were doing decently, but not good enough, and they started to landslide, and then they started to landslide really hard in the first couple of just months. I think it was in probably December when they really started to landslide, and they really had this big drop-off, and they just continued to go on it and continue to improve on that drop-off. They've never really gotten better since then, and the Ottawa Senators have just kind of been on a landslide ever since. Nothing has really worked for them. The offense has been struggling. The defense has been extra struggling. The goaltending, of course, has been trashed by this whole season. And there's lots of problems with the team, and now it's in big question what's going to happen in that franchise and what's going to happen next. But I expect them to be in the playoffs by quite a little bit, and of course a lot of people did as well after they went to the Eastern Conference Final last season, and it's pretty disappointing how they've gotten on the track that they've gone on, and just the Canadian teams in general, a lot of them have landslide from last season, and it's of course sad to see. Now, last but not least, we have the Edmonton Oilers, who are 34, 36, and 5. Now, if you saw my predictions video at the start of the season, you would know that I pegged them to get to the Stanley Cup Final, but eventually lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think it was 6 games. Now, that prediction is just a little bit off there. They aren't making the playoffs here, and it seems like the last season, you know, when they went, I think it was to the second round, they got beaten by Anaheim, and I might be wrong about that, but when you got that far, you know, they made the playoffs for I think the first time in 10 years is what they did. It created a bit of a mirage for, I think, that city and everybody's expectations of the team. You know, I thought that Connor McDavid would have a fantastic season. Now he is having a fantastic season, but his season is not enough to carry that team. Of course, that team has regressed immensely. I mean, guys like who I thought were going to be reliable for them, like Klefbom, have really been trashed this season. There's been a lot of guys that are expected to be a lot better that played pretty damn decently in that last season, but have really just kind of been really regressed throughout this season. And it's tough to see because there are some key pieces that I thought would really work in that team and would really create a good atmosphere and a good team to compete into the playoffs, but a lot of them have regressed, and a lot of them have been pretty disappointing this year. Maybe just being off year for a lot of them, but for a lot of them, it was pretty mirage last season. You know, it was a good season for them, but from this season, I'm just comparing it. It is night and day, man. I mean, a lot of the problems could be pretty fixed easily. I mean, you could get like one penalty killer of that team, and that would work a lot better for them. And it's just a weird team in general. They aren't really consistent at all. They've just been trashed throughout the whole season, and it's just a weird team to watch as well. They're a fun team to watch, I guess, if you aren't an Edmonton Oilers fan and you're just focusing on McDavid. But for this team, you know, I expect them to do big things and improve on last season. And, of course, they have done anything but that. And 5 of these teams I pegged to be in the playoffs, and 3 of them are Canadian teams that were in the playoffs last season. So it's a bit of a drop-off for Canadian teams at least. I think the only teams in the playoffs right now are Toronto and Winnipeg, so that's a big drop-off for them. And it's just pretty disappointing for Canadians over there, you know, have one of the best seasons for NHL or Canada hockey for NHL teams to then one of the worst. And it wasn't as bad as all the Canadian teams missing a couple of years ago, but through having the Canadiens, Senators, and Oilers in the playoffs and then not having any of them in the playoffs next year is a bit disappointing then. But for me to have 5 of these teams out of these 7 teams to be in the playoffs and all of them to not be at all, it is pretty disappointing for me. But that's going to, guys. Like, subscribe, and not ring that bell if you haven't. Tell me below what disappointing team that you had, probably you predicted to be in the playoffs or do big things in the playoffs this season that haven't done so. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.